fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Resurrected A Winner's You podcast, episode 39. As ever, my name is David, and I am sitting 362 three-dimensional miles across from Mr. Alex Aldrich. How you doing today, Alex?
I'm all right. I'm
You
tired.
You ready to rock and roll? Tired? As that's
I've had a
just your
long
life
day.
now. You're a dad. I feel like you're not allowed to be anything but tired.
And I've been to Tottenham and back today, so
Oh, have you?
very tired from shouting and being nervous.
What was the score?
It was 1-0, and as I said to Rachel's dad, I didn't think I would ever in my life be clearing a hoofed clearance at home to Burnley as much as I did today. But my God, did I cheer that hoofed clearance at home to Burnley.
It's actually quite a good win for Spurs because they have had
Vital.
definitely vital, but also like I feel like having watched them sort of from afar this season, they have a track record over multiple seasons actually of winning a massive game and then doing a Scotland and slipping up on a hurdle that they really should be clear fairly easily.
Yeah. But Burnley are quite a frequent one of those. In fact, they were earlier this season when Conte had a bit of a meltdown afterwards.
Burnley's results since they sacked old Sean Dyche have taken a dramatic uptick as well.
They were in good form. They will probably, they're in the bottom three, but I reckon they may stay up.
Yeah.
Today's been quite mad, actually. Man City getting a draw at West Ham and Brentford coming from behind to beat Everton at home. It's hotting up. Nothing is decided this season yet, except, Norwich and Watford, because they suck.
They do suck.
People don't really want to hear about football, though, so I have a way to get away from that.
Okay.
Because I threatened this to you before, because this is episode 39, and behind the curtain peek for everybody listening / watching, every 10 episodes I change the 4 pieces of music that are skipped through on the fake radio tuning at the beginning jingle. So I was going to quiz David on what those songs are, see if he can get them.
Okay.
So I have created a file.
Oh, I'm going to do badly here. I'm going to do so badly, but
Discord.
let's go.
Is Discord okay?
Yes.
Vicky, just hang on a second. So I've cleaned them up so they are not with all the static and weird sound effects on top of it. It's just straight up the exact clip.
Okay.
Of the song. I don't know if it's good. Could you play out your phone and I can then hear it and then I'll overdub it.
Okay. Let's do that.
And there's a big pause in between every track, so you can just pause your phone and it should fit very nicely. I reckon you'll get 2, maybe 3.
Here we go.
I don't think you'll get 4.
I don't know if I'm not good at these, so I'm not sure I'll get any. Right. That's that sounds Banjo-Kazooie like. Is it?
It is Banjo-Kazooie like.
Oh no. Let me have a... It's not Diddy Kong Racing, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, where did I pull that from?
The main theme.
Annoyingly, that's another one I recognise.
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, what is that?
I've cut out the bit before that I reckon you would get it from.
I want to try and rewind it. Here we go. I'm going to come back to that one.
All right.
Oh, I'm going to make a mess of that. Is it Super Mario World? Or 3? It's at Mario though, isn't it?
Kinda, yeah. It is Super Mario World. Ooh.
2, right, okay.
Yoshi's Island. You can guess what that is.
No, what is that?
Oh, maybe you can't because you've not played enough of them.
It's not a Yakuza game, is it?
Correct.
What's the second one?
It's a karaoke song from Yakuza.
fuck is that? That is driving me mad.
Just before that, I believe it's just gone.
No, I'm not gonna get that. I'm gonna kick myself though. What is it?
It's a 360 game. Um, it is. Oh, I don't know how to say any more clues without actually spoiling it for you. Um, I love it a lot. At least I did at the time. I think I maybe even gave it a 10.
A 10.
Mm. I don't give it a 10 now, but I did at the time. This is a sequel in a trilogy that
Sequel.
ended on PS4. So it skipped a generation and ended there. And there was also a spin-off
Sequel
made by the B team.
that ended on PS4.
Yeah, two games on 360. The first one I believe now is the most revered of the lot, and the last one was not enjoyed by many people, or at least people thought it was the worst one. These aren't helping, are they?
No, you're gonna have to just give it to me.
Batman Arkham City.
Oh, I feel like we must be due for another one of those. But old Rocksteady are making a Justice League game now. Oh
No,
no. They're making a Suicide Squad game, aren't they?
no.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, they are because we've seen it.
who's making the Arkham Knights game? I thought that was Rocksteady.
Mm, we're gonna have
The one with
to. We're gonna have
Nightwing
to
in it and
consult.
Robin and all that.
We're gonna have to consult Google. Arkham Knights.
Have you got any requests for
WB Montreal are the
Right, okay.
developer
I
for that.
stand corrected. They are doing the Suicide Squad one then.
Is this Arkham Knights game going to be any good?
I hope so.
What is it? It's a
It's going
multiplayer
to be
game,
like
right?
it's going to be like the Arkham stuff. No, I don't think so. It may have co-op in it, I think.
So what was
But
that? What was that Arkham game that was like a first-person shooter multiplayer game?
that was the one which like Joker's cruise and stuff, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Mm. Arkham arseholes. I can't remember.
not good enough for us
Criminal
to
cunts. Oh, I
remember.
can't remember what it was called now.
The criminals.
Oh, also,
Talking criminals.
thanks for asking, by the way. But at Tottenham, I managed to just go to the
Oh
cubicle
yeah,
and
how did
not
it go?
like have an existential crisis. I
Oh,
mean, I went to the
you just
cubicle.
went for the cubicle, yeah.
I did find a toilet that had 4 cubicles in it rather than one, so I know where to go next time and not have to wait.
Yeah, just accept your life as someone who can't pee in public.
Yeah, I did, and I didn't, think right. It's time to make a change. Look at the man in the mirror while he pisses next to you or whatever. Didn't do that this time. Just
Just
queued up for the cubicle. No regrets. Although actually there was slight regrets when I opened the cubicle door and around the bottom of the toilet was mashed up toilet paper that was covered in wee and some ketchup packets.
yeah. I don't understand how like sports toilets are so disgusting.
What's
Like
Sports fans in general are pretty disgusting.
yeah, it must be. I just find it hard to believe that like there just must be some people that have home toilets that look like that. Because like you have to deliberately do that. Surely, like, this is not.
Yeah,
And why are you deliberately doing that? Even
I made a
I
big
wasn't.
like kind of look around at everybody and be like, "You seeing this shit? Because it wasn't me," kind of thing. As in, like, look at his previous slob that's just done this, but he just kind of left without a care in the world.
He was not worried.
Why is there loads of toilet paper on the floor?
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Me neither. There was a guy next to me with his son who was really young. He must have been like 6, maybe. And obviously the ongoing political tensions around the Tottenham fans and their use of the Y word as a chant, which they claim is fine because it's, we're being nice about them, aren't we? We're on their side, which does not give you the right to try and reclaim, or like, why do you have to be defiant against authority that you really desperately want to use a racial term for Jewish people that the Nazis made up? Why do you care that much? Just drop it. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be that important to you because it's more important to people who've suffered because of it. So
It's an
fuck
odd hill
off.
to die
Anyway,
on, really, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. But they're all dying on it because it was deafening. But the guy next to me, his son kept asking them what he was. kept asking his dad what they were saying, and his dad kept saying like, "Look, I've promised you, I will tell you what they're saying later on after we've gone home, but I can't tell you now." And he wasn't saying it. And at one point, because they go, "Doo, doo, 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 doo," and then say it, he was like, he goes, "Are they saying Leeds, Daddy?" He's like, "No, they're not saying Leeds." It sickens me. It disgusts me. I don't know why people do it. I don't think. I don't think you should want to be able to. You shouldn't have a right to be like, "I'm going to say it though because I don't mean it in a nasty way." Doesn't matter.
I think
Doesn't matter.
Other than the odd situation,
you aren't one for a start.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
Other than the odd situation with toilets, one of the most baffling things I find about sports, in particular football culture, is the way in which it seems like grown men will act and say like things that it just wouldn't say if when they
Josh,
weren't
so many people
within the
there.
grounds.
It makes me so angry. Like anyone who says anything, like I judge them on their terrible opinions on football because they're always wrong and they're always like bargain basement pub afterward bullshit.
Yeah.
But did I tell you before about that guy who was like talking about Tottenham's right wing back Emerson Royale, and he went, "Oh, all he needs to do is play like Danny Elvis. That's all he's got to do." Oh yeah, only the greatest right back to have played the game for the last 2 decades.
Why didn't he think of that? It's obvious.
Idiot. Come on, how did you get to the top of the professional game in England without deciding to play like Danny Elvis, you knob?
That's all he had to do. That's all he had to do.
I hate that guy the most. He's such a he's the kind of guy I know would start on you after he's had a few. Just hate him. Don't know his name. He might be nice, but he shouts some horribly offensive things in as deep a voice as possible. I just hate him. He's a prick. And because we have season tickets, we're always in the same place, and he's always there, and everybody has to stand up because it makes you look hard and tough. And I just want to sit down,
watch the game.
I really want to just be comfortable, please. Why are we standing up? Why would you choose? You wouldn't go to a fucking cinema and stand up, would you? You wouldn't go anywhere and choose to stand up.
Shows you how passionate you are if you stand up. Because you don't just don't have time to sit down, Alex.
Yeah.
Too much passion brewing inside you.
Exactly that.
While we are on the subject of racist chants that the Nazis made up, I suppose that's a...
Beep-up-bo is what they say.
Yeah, that's a nice jumping on point. So this podcast, I guess actually this is probably the best jumping on point. This podcast is slightly different. So Alex and I are going to try something a little bit different. We were having a chat offline, but online, off pod, about the podcast and how we can so sometimes for instance as much as we're enjoying Elden Ring, it is patently clear this is a long game, and because we've got other commitments, life and other video game commitments, sometimes we just get a bit bogged down with it. So where we're not giving up on these games and we're not giving up on Elden Ring, we were trying to think of different ways that we might be able to sort of keep the content coming without adding a blinding amount of extra work onto our already busy plates, but also sort of just find a way to get these podcasts out. You know, if we're doing a sort of Elden Ring game and there's this gate that, I'm making a mess of this, but basically just increase the volume and pace at which we're able to churn out these games.
Increase the volume, decrease the waiting time.
Exactly. So where Elden Ring is still going to be the deep dive games, and we enjoy that, so we're going to continue to do the deep dive games. We also thought we're going to do a bit more of a surface glean of some other games. So we're going to talk about 2 games today, which is Wolfenstein 3D and Medal of Honor Frontline for the PS2. And we're not going to go into as much detail as we normally do about these games, but we're going to talk about them in a decent amount of detail, and then just sort of see how we feel with this. So it's basically sort of a B tier podcast, if that makes sense.
It's a double feature, as we're going to be calling it.
Exactly.
And we've already called it. If you're looking at the title, as David always says, if you read the title, you'll already know.
You already know if you're watching us. But we do have a sort of a format to this one, in which maybe we don't have such a rigid format to the deeper ones. So we're going to talk about.
So they'll typically be, as David's kind of alluded to, they're typically going to be shorter.
Yes.
But they're also going to be linked, which is what makes it fun for us to try and make a connection between the two. And the link for these 2 video games obviously is the World War II scenario, but also for the month of May that we are recording this in, 2022, Wolfenstein 3D is 30 years old this month, and Medal of Honor Frontline is 20 years old this month. So we are combining 2 anniversary games into one podcast.
That's excellent. There's lots of links in between this game. They're World War II related.
Hmm.
They share an anniversary month. They're both first person shooters.
I'm sure one directly influenced the other one.
Almost certainly.
Very, very closely.
And I think actually they represent their eras in
Oh, yeah.
interesting
Yeah,
ways,
absolutely.
and in ways that there are aspects of you can see through lines between the two in certain areas, and you can even see through lines between them into the modern day shooter. But I think also beyond that, they have aged, I guess, over the years, which is unsurprising.
They have both um they both have surface level appeal
Mm-hmm.
because of the nostalgic factor and the fact that they are still playable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they also have cracks that appear after an extended play time, is what I
Yeah,
would say.
I would say that. I would say I agree with that. And I guess we'll get to it more in the second part of the podcast, but I also think it's interesting that Medal of Honor came out about the same time as Halo, because I don't think that has aged in the same way that this game has as well.
What you think it's aged better?
No, I think Halo CE Combat Evolved still feels like a fairly modern game in a
Yeah,
way
that's
that
what I mean. Yeah,
in a way that this one, look at those silk lines. In a way that this
I'd have the
one,
same. I'd have the same look. Well,
yeah,
I just get that bit there.
in a way that this one perhaps shows its
This,
age.
yeah, this felt like it was. Well, I suppose this one maybe did not come from a PC development, did it? I know that there were PC Medal of Honor games, but did they not
This was a
have
console
roots?
only one, yeah.
Yeah, so they had this had console roots in terms of typically one analog stick.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, Not this one obviously did have 2 analog sticks because it was on PS2,
Yeah,
GameCube, Xbox, but um, Halo was a PC developed game that then was ported to the Xbox for the
that's right.
launch.
Actually
So
started
it
off
was
as a
probably
Mac
built
game,
in
didn't it?
terms of. Did it?
Yeah, it was owned by Apple, and
Um,
then Microsoft bought it, I believe.
oh shit. Nice knowledge bomb. So I feel like that probably had to incorporate moving while shooting, whereas that I feel is the biggest barrier for Medal of Honor Frontline in terms of its feeling modern.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Yeah.
skipping ahead there.
Yeah, I was going to say I've got. I was about to say something else, but I thought no, we'll hold off, because first off we're going to dive into Wolfenstein 3D. So Wolfenstein 3D was first released on PC on May the 5th, 1992, by John Romero, John Carmack, and Tom Hall under the banner of id Software. Apparently, this, Alex, was inspired in the 1981 Castle Wolfenstein, which I keep calling this game. Which is an Apple II action adventure game, and it is in fact the third installment of the Wolfenstein series.
Who developed Castle Wolfenstein? Was that Romero as well? Or was that they just influenced by it?
No, they bought that. I wonder if I've actually got that. I certainly picked that up when I was doing my research on this. Let me see if I can zoom ahead through my research and find this. So I know that they were talking about, as I try and vamp and look at the same time. Here we go. So most of them had in November 1991, with the second Commander Keen trilogy of episodes nearing completion, which was id Software's pre-Wolfenstein 3D game,
Yeah.
and their contractual obligations to Softdisk almost finished. id Software began planning their next game.
Oh, I forgot they made loads of games for soft
They
disk,
did.
didn't
Most of the
Yeah.
team had a preference to move away from the more child-friendly games like Commander Keen and do something more adult or rock and roll, so to speak. So after some discussion, they settled on Wolfenstein 3D due to their fondness for the previous games. After some negotiation, id Software were able to purchase the rights for the game for $5,000, and I've not written down who they bought it from.
Okay, so that's very cool that they did that, though. I'm ripping id, by the way, today, for those who are not
You are.
watching.
They, if I remember correctly, Wolfenstein 3D, and it's Castle Wolfenstein. Why did I do that? I've been caught. I do believe actually they didn't think they were going to be able to get the license for Wolfenstein, so they started planning sort of adaptations to the game, if that makes sense. 1981, it was made by Muse Software.
Okay.
And Muse Software made other games such as Maze Game, Escape, Sideshow, Tank War, Global War, 3 Mile Island, ABM, 3 Mile Island Special Edition, International Grand Prix, Robot War, Castle Wolfenstein, Caverns of Freitag, the Caverns of Friday, basically that is.
Yeah.
I'm not Space Taxi on Commodore 64, Leaps
Not
and
I'm not
Bounds.
recognizing any of these. We're
No,
too
neither am
young.
I.
We're too young, mate. We're too fucking young. We ain't old
The
enough.
last game they released was Leaps and Bounds, which was on the Atari 8-bit Commodore 64 in 1985. So
Clearly, they were gone by the time this game was
long
being developed.
defunct.
Then
Yeah,
no wonder it cost them barely anything to buy the rights.
yeah, exactly. Let me just have a look. So Wolfenstein 3D represented the second major independent release by id Software after the series Commander Keen episodes from mid 1991. The PC games model was pretty interesting at this point. Alex, you will know because I think we both read this in the same book.
Oh, well, heard Will Wheaton read it to me anyway.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely, same as me. That the PC game model in these days was, or much of it. This wasn't exclusively this, but a lot of it was this way, in which it was a sort of shareware model in which players could get the game in many instances, not all though, for free. And this would contain a couple of levels, after which point players who wanted to then keep playing could write a physical letter, send off for the episodes with a check in the post, probably.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Which they would then pay for these levels, and they would send back a floppy disk with these levels.
Madness, isn't it?
Yeah. This meant that running a gaming business would be releasing a game and then getting to work on the next episode with a monthly return coming in for the life cycle of the game, as opposed to the current model we have. Or actually, in some ways, we're returning to that model with things like Game Pass, right?
And previously with episodic games as well, like Hitman, or before that, The Walking Dead, or whatever. Except none of that was free, really. The first one was never really free, was it?
The Walking Dead? No, I don't think so. No, we had to pay for that.
I think after a while for stuff like the Telltale series, is they did generally tend to put the first episode out for free, and
I've
then
got a feeling
hope
that's
that
how I
people would
played
buy in.
how I started with Batman.
Yeah,
And then I got
maybe.
annoyed because it was so buggy, refused to play it, and then I think I
Uh,
went back and played it at a later date.
they should be ashamed of themselves for all that. I guess they rightly were when they went out of business
So ashamed they
and
shut
then
up
came
shop.
back again.
Alex, what's your general sort of feelings and thoughts on this game? And when you went back to play it for this podcast, how did the actual reality of playing it hold up compared to your memory of it?
Well, for starters, it's mad to think that I bought this game twice for this podcast when I could have just played it in a browser.
I think I did too. Yeah, I did bought it on Steam, and I don't think I ever loaded it up. Bought it on, and then because I noticed it was on Xbox and rebought it for Xbox.
Yeah, for like £3 something or
Yeah.
whatever. Because I'm too tired to playing with a controller to be able to use mouse and keyboard, or even just keyboard.
To be
I
fair
assume
to
it
you,
probably was just keyboard back in the
even if
day.
you weren't that way inclined, even if you were that way inclined, well, actually, you're sitting at a desk. I was going to say you perhaps don't have the setup for that.
But that's it. It would have been at the little desk behind me,
Yeah.
in front of my TV, so I'd have had to like kneel down on the floor to play it. So that's kind of why I just thought I need to
You
find
could
a
get one
controller
of
way of
those
playing this.
beanie trays that like grannies and stuff have.
Oh, I do actually have one of those. Yeah, that's
Excellent.
what I was going to do
Oh, yeah.
before you told me it was on Xbox. I thought I'm going to have to get a wired mouse out, put the little lap thing on, and off I go. It's that, in it?
Yeah.
It's like rubbing your head and patting your stomach. No, patting your head, rubbing your stomach at the same time. Mouse and keyboard animation. Anyway, see, I can't do it. Part of it felt like putting on a nice old pair of socks that are nice and warm from the airing cupboard.
Nice warm
Where
airing cupboard socks, yeah.
And at first, you and I were both big, like, oh, this is so cool to kind of play this again.
Yeah.
Um,
That wore out pretty fast for me, I have to admit.
yeah, well, for starters, the turning circle I found was incredibly slow to the point where I had to be sprinting to turn in any effective way. The biggest thing that kind of hampers my enjoyment of this game is the lack of a map of any kind. Because even Doom's got a map.
Yeah.
It's a bullshit map that makes absolutely no sense, but there's a map there. And with this one, it was the constant getting lost because all the levels look exactly the same. All the walls. I mean, there are obviously like Here's the brown brick bit. Here's the blue bit.
Here's a
Here's the
knight.
grey
Here's some
bit.
a knight's armor just on the wall. Remember when
Yeah.
you pass that.
Here's the room with all the dog food in it or whatever. Um, so it was the constant getting lost that really got to me, and I just didn't really want to make the time for. The
Yeah.
shooting mechanics are still perfectly fine. It's still hilarious to shoot the zombies. Yeah, there are zombies, but not until episode 2. Shoot the Nazis and hear all their stupid
Mm.
death noises, especially those bigger fat guys who I said that sound like they're saying "beep up," but I don't actually know what they're saying. And then they say "mein
My
Lieben" when you kill
Lieben.
them. My love. I'm assuming that's Hitler.
Yeah, it
Um,
has to be. He's
and
everyone's Lieben.
actually, speaking of Lieben, it sounded like in Medal of Honor, some of them were saying "I love Lieben," which I love, as they're trying to shoot you. I don't think they were saying that either, but answers on a postcard, everybody, or on an email would be easier. But if you send us a postcard, we might be able to send you some shareware discs back.
Yeah,
So
we'll post you back a floppy disk
yeah,
with some
I
Tony's
bet
knee
I
porn
bet
on
you my dad's. We'll say no more. Be prepared for some Elmo in there though, and local Aberdeenshire lasses.
I forgot Elmo was in there.
That's your brain helping you out.
Yeah.
It's trying to block that part out of it. Um, so yeah, getting lost as often as you do, because as you, I think you pointed out the fact that like there are times in it where I've just realised that I've got a pair of drying swimming shorts in my shot there. That's how
It's just
classy
your
I am.
pants, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just the getting lost and the backtracking. It's the fact that you backtrack through empty rooms after
Yeah.
you've killed everybody. So it's just like everything is barren because you've killed
I
everyone.
genuinely
You
think
you
this
got no
game.
indication of where to
Yeah,
go.
I genuinely was playing this game and thought this game would be 10 times better if I didn't have to look for a key to get out of every room. If they just let me, once I found the door, if they just let me go.
And sometimes like the key didn't even open the door that it looked like it should open. I swear I got to some levels where it's just like this one doesn't open. And I was desperate to find secrets, so I was like, this must be the only time, the only like moment in world history where it's okay to fervishly touch pictures of Hitler, just constantly touching Nazi artwork.
Yeah.
Like, come on, open the fucking wall. Um, that was a weird thing, isn't it? Like, just you spam the A button whilst sort of strafing across a wall constantly to try and find. Because
Yeah.
I found like in the first episode, and full disclosure here, I never got past the first couple of levels of the second episode because
Mm.
I was done at that point. But in the first episode, I think it's on like the first or second level. There's a secret where you get an MP5, and I never found an MP5 after that. So if I had to play that whole first episode with a fucking pistol, I wouldn't have even got that far.
I was looking through my notes because I'd sort of bullet pointed a few notes when I was writing for writing this up, getting in prep for this podcast, and we've covered a lot of it. But yeah, I enjoyed sort of my first sweep through the level, but as soon as I'd killed everyone, and then I began to have to sort of not like go and find a key to find the door, and then even once I found the key, generally it took me ages to figure out where the door was. So I'd end up just like retracing my steps and like that to me is like. But then I guess, is it of its time? I suppose it is of its time, obviously.
Yeah.
And also, I'm trying to think.
Well,
Like,
I mean, what else was there? This was
yeah, and
groundbreaking
if
in
this is
that
a
regard.
shareware game, also, like, so
Yeah.
you potentially, like, you and I were looking to get through these levels so we could get to the next one. Whereas I guess like if you've got the first set of levels on you, potentially you're waiting, I don't know, was it months before you were
Probably.
getting the next level. So
Yeah.
I guess hiding things in walls and figuring out the layout of the level and things like that is a way to artificially extend the life of the game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
encourage people to come back and also keep them remembering about the game. Because I wonder if that. But then also, I'm not sure, having read through or gone through Masters of Doom with Will Wheaton on Audible, I'm not sure they thought about that. So do you think they
I don't remember that being a point that was brought up.
No, they were just interested in making sort of rock and roll offensive, but just games that they thought would be fun. I'm not sure they ever sort of like went more deeply than that, unless these books just are there's a more cynical business mind that these books are not presenting.
It probably doesn't make for interesting reading,
Yeah.
or at least positive reading.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that it felt, they learned their lesson, but they kind of didn't, because every Doom game
You still got to find a
on
key, don't
PC,
you?
multiple, and there was a lot of backtracking and getting lost in those games as well.
Mm.
Um, there was not really much of a blueprint for them to follow. It seems as if they kind of closest resemblance to something like Wolfenstein was like a dungeon crawler game, which would have had even more crude 3D. I mean, the 3D effects in this compared to anything that came before it are like astonishingly good.
Yeah.
There was never anything really like this, and that just shows the genius of John Carmack as a programmer.
Yeah.
And John Romero, well, I'd say John Romero is a level designer, but we're just moaning about the level design, so maybe it's his fault. Maybe maybe he was the problem all along.
It's a weird one, because I did actually I enjoy being in the world. I just didn't
Mm.
enjoy the sort of puzzle nature of the game that you just have to sort of bash your head against. Am I meant to learn what these levels are? Is that what they wanted me to do? Because that's a lot
It's
of work.
almost like they want you to get out like a graph paper and draw out where you've been
Yeah.
in the level to kind of figure out how to get to the exit again. Because I feel like even trial and error was a stretch, because the trial part of that suggests that I was actively doing things deliberately and then saying, well, that part didn't work, so now I'll go this way, because that didn't happen. It would be, I don't know where I am, I'm going to turn around and go the opposite direction, and hopefully an enemy will be there and I'll know that I've gone the right
You know
way.
you've gone the right
No,
way.
there wasn't. Right, well, you'd walk into many rooms, big fuck off rooms, and they would have like, these kind of things of what we've complained about recently in other podcasts. I feel like we use the word obtuse almost every episode. I mean, that is what this game is,
Yeah.
and being overwhelmed by multiple routes to go.
Yeah.
And this game is absolutely full of that. You'd go into a room and it would have like 8 doors out of it, and 4 of them would probably go one way, and the other 4 would go the other way, and then you'd probably end up back there at some point, none the wiser, and all the enemies are dead, so you now don't know where you're going anymore. Yeah, there must be people who have speed run this game or
Oh,
whatever,
for
or who love
sure.
this game, who know like the back of their hand and can beat every level in seconds. But
Oh, undoubtedly.
um, for us, yeah, it was kind of like a needless slog that took the shine off the fun of being in Wolfenstein, and the terribly like bleepy bloopy old music, and like I said, the hilarious voice samples, like all the characters saying Achtung, which they also say in Medal of Honor, which is amazing. Um, and like I said, the lack of guns was a disappointment.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a pistol and an MP5, and that was it for the whole of the first
I
episode.
think I tried to write down all the guns. So there's a knife, pistol, machine gun, and a chain gun.
Well,
I
there
think
you
that's
go.
it.
I never got the chain gun.
I think I got to the chain gun. I'm not sure I got a machine gun,
Yes, because it was behind a hidden wall right
which I
at the
definitely
beginning.
wouldn't have found,
Mm.
because I wasn't hugging all the walls like you would have been.
Yeah, that final boss as well at the end of episode 1 is an absolute bastard.
He
The
is.
one who says Guten Tag
Guten Tag.
and just absolutely like wastes you with double machine guns.
He's
That was, I guess you were probably doing what I was doing. You're just sort of peeking out around walls,
Yeah.
getting a few hits in, peeking back, save state, peek out again, shoot, save state. Because he would absolutely like decimate your health if you got close to him, or even let him look at you for more than a few seconds.
What do you think about how the game looks? I thought it's still pretty striking and quite nice today. It's nice and bright that you
Yeah.
wouldn't expect from a
Those Nazis
dungeon
were
crawling
ostentatious, if nothing
Nazi.
else.
Yeah, those stone walls. That was some blue they had in those walls.
Bloody right it was. And then there was red ones later on. And then when you get to the second episode, it's like yellowy
Yellowy,
purple.
mossy purple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wooden rooms as well.
Those zombies are an absolute bunch of bastards. They are really hard to take down with just a pistol. They take a lot of
Take a
hits.
beating.
They really do. And I really enjoyed how that was set up as if like they were on the outskirts, or like the outer ramparts of the castle Wolfenstein, whichever version this was. And then once you get deeper into the castle, the normal Nazi blokes are in there still hanging about, just like besieged by zombies, and you're like cracking through the zombies. And then, well, now I've dealt with the undead, I've got to deal with these Nazi fuckers.
I'm assuming so. Nazis were well documented as having a sort of wing of the party that during the war, to try and like find different ways to win the war, they had like wings of like I was going to call it science, but this is definitively not science, but
It's almost
basically
like
groups that were
occult
like,
magic.
that's where I'm going, yeah. So because I was like, the link I was making is just quite a lot of media that sort of links Nazis and zombies together, and I wonder if it was because they were sort of famed and known interests in the occult side of
Yeah.
things.
Wolfenstein has certainly taken that and ran
Yeah.
with it, and it gets more and more mental as you go through the series. Do you remember there was one like a remake that came out on like 360 era, and it was basically like a lot of them were ghosts and shit. There's like a lot of blue kind of ghosty stuff going on in that one. I remember that
Zombie
one was quite
T.
mad. I don't know how much it had to do with that, if anything.
I'm trying to find this now so that I can make a recommendation to you guys. So there's a movie on YouTube, Nazi zombie movie.
Well, the Japanese too were
YouTube.
also doing, well, they were doing more sort of like horrible human experiments, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were doing some really fucked up stuff. There's a documentary about that I watched about. So it's got some number in it, and I can't remember what it is. Hang on, let me tell you what that was. Um, Japanese World War II experiments. Unit 731. Um, it was the Japanese one. So that was um, a covert biological and chemical warfare research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army that engaged in lethal human experimentation.
Fantastic.
There's some stuff on that you can watch. Like they infected people on purpose, usually the Chinese people. So Chinese, well, no, I was going to say prisoners of war, but apparently civilians too. Like they gave them infectious agents and exposed them to like bombs designed to penetrate their skin with like infectious particles and all this kind of shit. There's documentaries on Unit 731 that are apparently dark and disturbing. So I know they were into that, and I think the Nazis are always kind of more linked towards like effectively sort of, as you said, occult witchcraft things. Or in the extended Wolfenstein universe, it's more like a steampunk powered robots, isn't it? Like lots of
Yeah.
mech stuff. Like in the later ones on like the last generation of consoles, they had all these like robot dogs and big tank suits and all this kind of crazy shit.
I'm extremely disappointed that I can't seem to find it. I'm going to have to move on in the interest of keeping this podcast going without finding it. But if I do find it, I'm going to shout it out.
Sure.
One time, Alex, when you came to visit me when I lived in a little fishing village called Gurdon.
Yes, I like that place. It was nice.
There was a zombie movie filmed there.
Oh, cool.
Zombie Scotland.
It wasn't World War Z, was it?
No, it's a really, really bad.
Oh, right.
It's a really, really bad zombie movie. So basically, during World War II, the Nazis discovered this kind of tea that if they fed to people, it turned them into, they were trying to create super soldiers. And basically, they had
Yeah.
this crate of tea that fell off a boat or something into the sea, and it washed up on Gurdon shore. And this guy was like, he found
Wait,
it.
is that part real, or is this all the film you're talking
This is all
about?
the movie, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then they found the box of tea, and they all started drinking the tea, and it started turning everyone in the village into zombies. And I've been trying to find it because it's set in Gurdon, or there's bits of it in Gurdon.
Is it like a British-made film then?
Oh, it's like, it's not. I wouldn't even say that. It's like one level up from Students movie has made it. It's. I've watched it a couple of times. It's just. It is so bad. It's actually quite entertaining. So if I find it, I'll plop it in the. I'll plop it in underneath in the YouTube video as well if I find it. I'll link to it. But yeah, so the gameplay for this, so largely considered the grandfather of 3D shooters, Wolfenstein popularized, that's a hard word to say, and in many ways paved the way for the modern incarnation of the FPS genre. The main gist of the game is that it's a flat game broken up into a series of levels in which the player, as was discussed, is tasked with moving through the level, killing enemies in search for treasure, and a key that will then let them escape the level. With the levels being grouped together into levels with a boss at the end of the levels. That is maybe the worst sentence I've ever written in my life. But
Yeah, so the levels are all grouped together, and at the end of all that set of levels, there's a
oh
boss.
my goodness.
Yeah.
My next question was you about kind of like thought on the level designs and the bosses. I guess we've sort of covered what we think about the levels. And we've kind of covered the bosses. The only boss I kind of wanted to touch on is I didn't get this far, but I watched it on YouTube. Did you watch the final boss in this game, Hitler?
What,
when you
Mecha
get to
Hitler?
Yeah, and he's sort of a wizard Hitler, and he's wearing like big long robes, and he like flies around like he's some sort of wizard.
Oh no, I haven't seen that. I know the one that is like in a mech suit, like Krang from Turtles.
You're gonna have to search out Wizard Hitler. It's very
might put
funny.
Wolfenstein in front of that as well, just to be safe.
And I'd also mention like Mein Leben and stuff like that, and the lack of guns in the game, which I was surprised about because I thought that must be a memory issue. Do you think?
Sorry?
Well, I'm trying to think that I never felt
there was fake Hitler.
I never felt like there was a lack of guns in like Doom and things like that. So I just wonder.
No, that was the best thing about Doom.
I wonder why there are so few guns in this game.
In fact, there's more. Wait, hang on. Fake Hitlers, also known as Hitler's ghosts, are dummies fashioned to look like Adolf Hitler that only appear in the final level of Episode 3 in Wolfenstein 3D. These robe-wearing puppets, along with a regular Nazi personnel, protect Hitler himself.
So they're fake robe-wearing Hitlers.
But they're obviously not the final boss, because that's got to be Mecha Hitler.
That's Mecha Hitler. Yeah, you're right.
Who I really wanted to get to.
Be nice if there was sort of a level skip button, so you could just sort of zoom to Mecha Hitler. Shooting.
Also known as Mecha Hitler or Armored Hitler. It's the final boss of Episode 3. So it looks like you've got those floaty wizard ones protecting old robot Hitler.
Old robot Hitler.
So yeah, I don't like the level design really. I'm sure it's great to, in the planning out stage, and it's probably really clever in the way it all ties together. But it's too bewildering for me to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It all looks too similar.
I'm sure we'll get to this, but yeah, like my feeling sort of overall in this game is that if you're sort of interested in the history of video games like you and I are, it's an absolute must experience game.
Yeah, and it's not unfun. It's still fun to play, but it's just a slog.
It's a slog, and yeah, it's like trying to recommend it as like go and play this game. It's tough to do unless you're coming at it from a sort of interest in the history of video games, or even id, or if there's something pulling you to this game beyond just wanting to play the game.
Yeah, you can play it in a browser, so 5 minutes of this game is probably enough for most people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So pop it on the browser version and have a go with just your keyboard. It will be fine.
I'm not sure if this is the first, but it's certainly one of the earliest examples of 2.5D. So the players, they move around what is ostensibly a 3D environment, but in order to save on power and to eke out more juice from the machines of the time, so to speak, the enemies like Doom actually, but they're 2D, unlike the 3D environment, but instead they always rotate, so they're always facing the player, creating the impression of depth.
Yeah,
I quite like that. It's a smart way to sort of get around. You often hear video game developers talk about how sometimes the most creative that they can get in sort of things that end up moving the industry forward come from being limited by hardware and having sort of things in your way that and you've got to try and be creative to get around it. And I think this is a good example of that.
Yeah, managing sort of resources.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the sprites look good still today as well.
I agree.
For the most part, they look decent.
The animations are good. The gore is good. If you're not a fan of German Shepherds or Alsatians, whatever you want to call them, they will explode in a pool of blood in this game if you want to take out some fake virtual revenge.
They will. Alex, what's your understanding of the plot of this game? Do you have any? Is it
No,
just right? Okay, so you're in for a treat then, I suppose.
other
So
than BJ Blazkowicz.
yeah. So Wolfenstein 3D is, hopefully I've not written the word level 300 times. Wolfenstein 3 is divided into two sets of 3 episodes: Escape from Castle Wolfenstein, Operation Eisenfaust, and Die Führer Die. These serve as the primary trilogy, with a second trilogy, the Nocturnal Missions, including A Dark Secret, Trail of the Madman, and Confrontation. The protagonist is BJ Blazkowicz. He's an American spy of Polish descent, and the game follows his efforts to destroy the Nazi regime. In Escape, Blazkowicz has been captured while trying to find the plans for Operation Eisenfaust, which is Iron Fist in German, and imprisoned in Castle Wolfenstein, from which he must escape. Operation Eisenfaust, Iron Fist, follows his discovery and thwarting of the Nazi plan to create an army of undead mutants in Castle Hollhammer. Hollhammer? Holle Hammer.
Yeah,
While in Die Führer Die, he infiltrates a bunker under the Reichstag, culminating in a battle with Adolf Hitler in a robotic suit equipped with 4 chain guns. Jeez. The Nocturnal Missions, if you're interested, form a prequel storyline dealing with the German plans for chemical warfare, a dark secret with the initial pursuit through a weapons research facility of the scientists responsible for developing said weaponry. Trail of the Madman takes place in Castle Erlangen, where Blazkowicz's goal is to find the maps and plans for the chemical war. The story ends in Confrontation, which is set in Castle Offenbach. Some of these names.
that's stellar German, by
Yeah,
the way.
as he confronts the Nazi general behind the chemical warfare initiative. An additional episode titled Spear of Destiny was released as a retail game by FormGen. It follows Blazkowicz on a different prequel mission trying to recapture Spear of Destiny from the Nazis after it was stolen from Versailles. FormGen later developed 2 sequel episodes, Return to Danger and Ultimate Challenge, each of which feature Blazkowicz as he fights through another Nazi base to recover the Spear of Destiny after it has been stolen again as part of a plot to build a nuclear weapon or summon demons. It's just a load of
Either or.
rubbish, really. Yeah, either or, same thing.
Yep.
It,
Oh well, it's a load of rubbish, but it's you know,
yeah, rubbish.
it's not.
Rubbish is the wrong word.
It's just mad shit
It's just
around.
mad stuff to stick someone in a room to let them shoot Nazis.
Yeah, exactly that. They've got pretty creative with it.
What
Um,
what was
it,
the
it
vogue term when we were at university when people started writing books and stuff? Something media, and it was like offshoots of different types of media. So there's a movie. So say there was a video game, they would have like comic books, TV shows coming off. Can you remember
mm,
Tim Connor used to always bang on about it? One of our lecturers.
yeah, I kind of remember him talking about stuff like that, but I don't remember what the
But I
term was.
can't. But where I'm going with this basically is I can't imagine the story in this is going to be sprouting people writing books and things like that to get
No,
people
I
really
would have
deep into
thought
the
not.
lore of Wolfenstein.
No, I mean they've kind of carried on. Even the newer Wolfenstein stuff, they still write an absolutely insane yarn
Yeah.
for these things. Probably the best thing about the most recent proper Wolfenstein game was the fact that that story was absolutely insane. What is it? The New Colossus, was that the one?
Yes. Yes.
There's basically the second part of the new Wolfensteins on last gen consoles was had one of the craziest, most like swervy stories I've ever seen. It was
That was
just
so fun. That was
madness.
so fun, that story.
Brilliant.
I'm so disappointed. I've never not played it yet because it got such bad reception, but the sort of spin-off one where you play
Yeah.
as Blazkowicz's daughters, I'm so sad that
That's
that
because
wasn't
they
well received.
no, they started giving like health bars and you had to have like certain weapon types
Mm.
that would only do damage to certain enemies and and the characters were supposed to be loathsome as well.
Mm.
Um, but I felt they did such a great job with Blazkowicz on the 2 games that
Oh,
came
they
out
did. They did. Those games are
for such a
fantastic.
one-note character.
Yeah.
They fleshed him out beautifully
Mm.
in an insane way that was so fun.
I hope
Like
they
it's just
continue
glorious.
to do stuff like that because they did a fantastic job with Doom as well.
Oh, good God, yeah.
I hope,
Yeah.
even though they're owned by Microsoft now, they continue to be able to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, they've had a real resurgence. It
Mm.
have they had a misstep, as you say, with that spin-off but Doom Eternal was received relatively strongly. I didn't get on
I
with it
thought they put
a
too
huge
much.
amount.
It just became overly complicated to me.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It was just too much.
Yeah.
But Doom 2016 is a masterpiece that we've probably we've missed the 5 years of that, haven't we? We don't, it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be an anniversary, but I'm sure we'll get to maybe that at some point in time.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. The development. So I'll try and not. So we did sort of um, touch on this before. So I'll try and skip what we've done. So we've got like in November. Like we've covered this, but haven't we? In November 1991, with second Commander Keen trilogy episodes nearing completion. They started work on their next game. We spoke about this, and they ended up. Oh, here we go. So they bought the Wolfenstein franchise for $5,000. Quite cheap, really.
I assume so, yeah, even with inflation, that sounds cheap.
Yeah. So they began development of the game in December 1991 with Romero and Hall designing the gameplay. Hall, the story and levels under construction from Romero. That he wanted under instruction from Romero, sorry, that he wanted to be able to mow down Nazis. Hall also composed the general storyline for the game, and Carmack took on lead programming duties for both the game and the engine itself.
Yes.
It's important to remember just how impressive this game was at the time. Interactive Doors, sorry, was an absolute technological feat in a 3D engine at the time. With the core tenet of the game was that they wanted it to be smooth and fast, something that we really
Yeah.
see come to fruition in Doom. I think later on, once they sort of move that up another notch when it comes to Doom games and really focus
Yeah.
on just booking it around.
Yeah.
But with this in mind, they removed things like they originally had looting of bodies, as they felt that it slowed down the game and they wanted players to keep moving rather than staying still, which you would have to do to loot the bodies.
Yeah.
Apparently, as the game neared completion, FromGen contacted id with concerns over its violence and shock content. In response, id increased these aspects. Carmack added skeleton corpses and bloody wall details, and Hall and Romero added screams and cries in German, along with a death cam that would show a replay of the death of the final boss of an episode. The team also added Horst Wessel Lied, the anthem of the Nazi Party, to the opening screen. Wow. And John Carmack, meanwhile, added in walls that moved when triggered to hide secret areas. A feature
Who did that?
John Carmack.
Bastard.
He's a son of a bitch. A feature that Hall had been pushing for months, but which Carmack had objected to for technical reasons. So,
Oh, not for moral reasons, and that it's just a pointless mind fuck that makes you just touch every wall constantly.
In the early morning of May the 5th, 1992, the first episode of the shareware game was completed and uploaded by Apogee and id to Bulletin Board Systems. The other episodes were completed a few weeks later. The total development time had been around half a year, with a cost of around 25,000 USD to cover the team's rent and $750 a month for salaries, plus around $6,500 for the computer John Carmack used to develop the engine, and
Oh my
$5,000 to
God.
get the Wolfenstein trademark.
Wow.
Some computer,
So,
isn't it?
yeah. Imagine paying that much. Imagine what 6,500 would get you for a computer nowadays. You could
I
probably
know.
pilot a spaceship with that shit.
The following summer, most of the id Software team developed Spear of Destiny, which we had touched on before, except John Carmack, who instead experimented with a new graphics engine that was licensed for Shadowcaster and became the basis of the Doom engine. The one episode of Spear of Destiny was a prequel to Wolfenstein 3D, as we've discussed, and used the same engine, but added some new audio graphics and enemies. It took 2 months to create and was published commercially by FromGen in September 1992. The publisher was concerned that the material would be controversial due to holy relics associated with World War II, but Romero didn't think it was that different from the Indiana Jones films, which I suppose is quite right.
Got you.
He absolutely nailed that.
Yeah.
So, in terms of sorry, carry on.
I am. We've already talked about it. It's not going to be the last mention, I would have thought, but I implore anybody listening to this to get the audiobook or read the
It's
book
so
of
good, so
Masters of
good.
Doom.
Have you
Um,
been tempted to read? There's a follow up.
yeah, I have definitely. And it's read by Will Wheaton again as
I'm
well.
going to have to
It's not
get to
meant to
that.
be as good,
No, because I
but
think I listened to the sort of taster, and I was like, this isn't quite as good, but I
it,
maybe still
it
feel like I need to do it.
yeah, it feels like it should be good because
Yeah.
it's going to talk about like them going off the rails a little bit with.
Hmm.
I think it talks about like Daikatana and stuff, but the I remember feeling like so kind of like it was like such a romanticized image that
Hmm.
it painted of like you just mentioned there the rent, and that is not the rent of an office, it's the rent of like a lake house,
Oh,
right?
that's right. Yeah, I
And
forgot they
they
did
just
that.
and they would go like jet skiing afterwards, and they would eat nothing but pizza and drink diet coke, and like they were like rock stars. These
Yeah.
dudes were, slaving away over this stuff, but they were all living together in this cool place. It just felt like must have been such an amazing time to be
It's
in that
probably,
team, and they were so groundbreaking in what they came up with at the end of it.
given how groundbreaking they were and sort of how close knit they were and sort of under each other's feet constantly, it's probably no surprise that they did eventually fall out, John Carmack and
Yeah, yeah,
Romero.
absolutely. I'm pretty sure we have seen. Was John when we went to Eurogamer and we met Tim Willits, who came into that team
That's
at a
right.
later date and was really there mainly for Doom 3 onwards.
Hmm.
Um, was Carmack there? Was there some kind of conversation with him over phone or something? There was something Carmack related there. I don't think he was there. He might have been,
Not sure.
because if he was there, that's a huge get. I know Romero definitely wasn't, but I'm not sure John Carmack was. I'm pretty sure he was there in some capacity.
But who would have been working for at that point? It wouldn't have been Facebook.
I don't think it was anybody.
Just sort of
It
doing his
might
own
have just
thing.
been, can you give us a talk about making Doom? I think.
That would be
I
amazing.
can't remember that. I could
Yeah.
be wrong.
Have you
But
looked at
the guy's genuinely a genius.
Have you looked at any of his other books? It's David Kushner, by the way, that wrote these books. These books that we're talking about. So I've got and have read Jacked, which is his story about the GTA
Oh,
development.
wow. That's a beautiful cover.
It's cool, isn't it? You're seeing it backwards, I think, but yeah,
No?
oh, you seeing it the right way around?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really really cool book. It's not as fun and not as interesting. It's actually quite dry. It just tells a lot of stories about lawyers trying to shut down GTA because they think it's
Mhm.
trying to kill children and stuff like that, and
Do
religious
you remember
groups
that
getting upset.
weird,
But it's worth it. It's worth a read, but not as good as the Doom one.
do you remember that weird BBC like mini film
Oh,
about
I heard about
GTA?
it, but I thought it would annoy me, so I didn't watch it. It's got Harry Potter
Was
in it.
I was gonna say it's got Daniel Radcliffe,
Yeah,
hasn't it, as Dan Houser? Dan Houser?
yeah,
Dan How? Yeah,
yeah. The Downhauser, one of the
yeah,
Hausers.
yeah. That was weird. That I don't think that was historically accurate in any way whatsoever.
I
Just made
think
him out.
Rockstar took legal action over that.
They might have done, yeah, which is
Um,
crazy. But yeah, that book and the development of all of the id games around this era is a fascinating read, and
really
thoroughly
is. In
recommend that.
fact, now you've said that, I think I'm going to have to go and get that other Doom one.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get a cheeky free Audible trial so I don't have to buy it.
Good shout, good shout. So, the reception of this game. It was hoped that Wolfenstein would make around 60,000 USD in its first month after release, but it did not. In fact, the first royalty check was for $100,000, which adjusted for inflation is in the ballpark of about 250 grand of today's money, meaning that the game was selling at about 4,000 copies a month. By the end of 1993, the game had sold over 100,000 units, and by mid 1994 had sold 150,000 copies via shareware and 150,000 copies via the expansion Spear of Destiny, which was sold at retail. The company estimated that they eventually sold over 1 million copies, bearing in mind that the industry was far smaller then than it was now. That is a staggering amount of
And with
copies.
the way that they distributed
Yeah,
this.
there's 1 million copies of the original release worldwide, with around 20% of sales coming internationally. Even though there was no effort put into internationally marketing the game, it was banned in Germany due to the Nazi symbolism, obviously,
Yeah.
which was later overturned. I don't think I've got that written down. I may not, but I think it was in 1984 they overturned that, so it's actually you can actually get it in, or maybe
Oh,
that's the
right.
next game that we're discussing. Actually, I'll need to come back to that.
I was surprised that had it in as well.
So yeah, so the legacy of this game, I guess, as we've already said, Wolfenstein 3D is described as the grandfather of 3D shooters, ushering in an era for the genre that dispensed with slow, clunky gameplay, instead focusing on speed and movement. A change to the industry that we're arguably still feeling today. I don't think there's arguable about it. We're definitely still
Not
feeling it
at all.
today. Especially
Mhm.
more so, in fact, I'd say there's more of a focus on speed of movement. You really, just from who is it, the Titanfall developer, like they have sort of
Yeah,
ushered in
Respawn.
Respawn they're real big proponents of making the player move, which I think is fantastic.
And we're also seeing quite a resurgence in games of this type, boomer shooters.
Yeah, we really are.
Ion Storm, I think it's Ion Fury, maybe it's called Ion Fury actually.
Yeah,
And oh God, what was that other one? Dusk. There's more of
Dusk,
like a
yeah.
Quake thing. There's a ton of games like this that are
There's
coming
so
out
many,
there.
and you keep mentioning them. You keep mentioning
I
it. And
do,
like, oh, there's
I do,
another one.
yeah.
There's another one I want to play. And I think I've been buying most of them when you've mentioned them, so I've
Yeah,
got a heavy
me
list to
too.
work my way through. Where was I? Where did I get to? Oh yeah. So although this wasn't the first FPS game, it certainly brought the genre to the forefront of people's minds and interests. I know I love a dramatic, sweeping statement, which, yeah, everybody listening to this podcast knows that, but I don't think it's too much to say that a lot of games which followed Doom, Call of Duty, Destiny, Apex, and even the next game we're about to discuss, all have direct lines back to the development and release of this game. Regardless of how it plays today, I think it's a must-play for anyone interested in the history of the medium. It's a historical piece well worth your time, would be my opinion on that, and I think you would agree.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess that brings us to the end. Unless you've got anything else you want to talk about.
No, let's move straight on.
Let's move straight on. I am going to.
Well, wait, maybe we should have like a little intermission music.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do that, and then after the intermission, we will come back for the second part of our double feature.
Yeah, there's some. Oh yeah, okay, right. You can do the intermission. But I was just thinking, yeah, there's a Mario song that's like stuck in my head now, and I'm just trying to think of. No, I can't get it out. If you remember what it is, I'll put it in there. Okay.